Welcome to the Legendary Book Club. This month's book, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. If you're a fan of real science and gripping fiction, this book is for you. First, I'm going to give a brief summary and overview without any spoilers. Then I'll go in depth into my personal review and rating of this book. Project Hail Mary follows the main character, Ryland Grace, a man who wakes up alone in a spaceship. He has no memory of how he got there, or even really who he is, his past, his former life. And as he begins to regain his memories and piece things together, he realizes he's a part of a critical mission to save Earth because the sun is dying. But he's not entirely alone on this trip. In the vast emptiness of space, as the book would put it. And what he discovers, not only who he discovers, but the solution he discovers will change everything. Personally, for people who haven't read this book, I would absolutely pick it up. This book is absolutely thrilling. If you love hard science fiction, this is a must-read. Andy Weir does not miss a beat. He does an incredible job keeping the science at such a realistic pace. You can tell a lot of research went into this book. There'll be pages of where the main character thinks to himself and he does math in his head and he does science and theoretical physics. And it's not like the character just talks about it. It's like the author had to know what he was speaking about, and the equations and everything that went into it had to have taken a lot of research and a lot of effort. And he does a good job of keeping the science realistic while making the story extremely engaging. This book is for readers who really love stories that make you think, but will also keep you invested. I highly recommend it. Warning, 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 warning. All right, if you haven't read this book, go pick up a copy and read it. It was time to pause the video and read this book. Then come back and I'm going to go more in depth about it. And if you have read the book, then read it again. Let's go. Things that I loved about this book. I love the parallel storytelling through the way that you don't know anything about the character, and obviously from the audience perspective, we don't know this character going into this book. So we learn about Ryland Grace, and he doesn't know anything either. So as we are learning, he's relearning about himself, and it's cut through the story, so you don't fully understand his past till almost the very end. And with that, like at the beginning of the story, you learn that he's a high school teacher on a spaceship, and you're like, oh my gosh, how did he go from high school teacher to on a spaceship? It makes no sense. Then you learn he was a part of the program, the initiative Project Hail Mary, to get people out there. And the whole time you're thinking, he probably just ended up getting on the project because his blood and his DNA matched with being in coma, because there was coma tests done with patients, and it was a very rare occasion. He just happened to know about the project, understand the science, and his discoveries to be able to be a part of the project. Something goes wrong with the other members of the project, and now he has to fill in. And it's not till the very end that you find out he was forced against his will. I loved the way that it was intercut and how you only learn in sections his past, and every time you learn about a section of his past, it kind of starts to change perspective of the story. Another huge thing that I love, and I've already mentioned it, but I'm going to say it again, the science in this book is unreal. Like, the knowledge of theoretical physics, mathematics, calculus, gravitational forces, everything. It is the most realistic piece of sci-fi fiction I've ever seen. The only unreal part about it is my next topic, Rocky, the extraterrestrial space crab. I loved the dynamic that Rocky added to the story. It wasn't exactly a human language. It was a very risky choice. I enjoyed The Martian, both the book and the movie, and that book is extremely realistic. So when I came into this book, reading, and especially with how it begins with all of the science, you're thinking it's going to be an extremely realistic book. Like they're not going to really do too much fiction. It's still sci-fi, but not like overbearing, anything crazy. And then you meet this character and it's an alien. And at first you're like, oh, it can't be an alien. Um, but I think the way it was written works so well. His character is fantastic. The way that they create his language through programming and chords and Excel and that whole part of the story, his interactions with Grace, the unique bond and development are some of the best interactions. I mean, obviously he's alone in space, so all he has is this alien space crab to talk to. The way that they understand each other and the way that their attitudes shift towards each other and learning about each other's biology, as well as learning why Rocky was also the only survivor of his crew, because even though he was an advanced species, he didn't understand about radiation as much as he also can't see with his eyes and humans do. It was just interesting to see their differences, and their chemistry in the book was done extremely well. Things that I was not the biggest fan of in this book. When I first picked it up, I wasn't too sure about it. The writing style, at least at the beginning of the book, it is a first-person telling, and it is kind of just a part of the character. It can be a little bit cringy. It can be a little... the way that Ryland Grace talks is a little quirky, childish, which it doesn't ruin the book for you. It's just certain parts not the biggest fan of. I've already talked about this a little bit. I wasn't expecting aliens, but it doesn't take away from the book. I was just expecting a super realistic book, and I was kind of still hoping for that with this one, but it's not that big of a deal. The biggest thing for me, though, was the unfinished storylines. So at the end of the book, you find out that Earth is just saved. So we go from Ryland Grace turns his ship back around to save the space crab, which is Rocky. And he catches up with Rocky, they fix the ship, and then it goes to the next chapter. Well, instead of telling you anything that happens, it's a creative writing choice, whatever, Ryland is now on the homeworld of Rockies, and he's just living there. And it's a very endearing thing. They have some good conversation at the end of the book. You find out that full circle, Ryland Grace is now teaching the young children of Rocky's home planet, because he was a teacher on Earth. It's full circle. He wanted to teach again. Like, that's what Grace likes to do. But what's kind of just brushed over is, like, at the end of the book, they just go like, yeah, by the way, Earth was saved. And it's like, there was a large storyline. So Ryland Grace was forced to be on this project, though as he comes through the project, I feel like he would have volunteered, but that's neither said nor done. He had this whole story arc with Strat, the head of Project Hail Mary, who brought him on in the first place, and Strat forced him to be on this project, also to be on Project Hail Mary, like to be on the ship. And that whole story arc, like, they had a lot of chemistry, and there was a lot of history with that character, and it's kind of just brushed under the rug. And I wasn't the biggest fan of how that part ended. It definitely could have used a little bit more closure, but it does not ruin the book for me at all. I feel like it still ended very strong. I feel the choices that were made were different. I wouldn't say that they were bad either. Definitely a good book. For more news on this, Project Hail Mary is going to be turned into a movie. It's going to be with Ryan Gosling. It's set to play Dr. Grace, who's the main character, directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who are known for the Lego Movie as well as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the animated film, that were both largely successful. I'm sure if they can capture the book's blend of science humor and the emotional weight that it had, it could be an amazing adaptation, just like The Martian was with Matt Damon with the book. I don't think there's a release date yet, but I will definitely keep you updated. Overall, Project Hail Mary, I think, is one of my favorite books. It's incredible. Its science fiction is one of a kind, and it makes it feel as real as possible while delivering a thrilling, emotional, and definitely humorous story. Even if with the few minor issues, which I wouldn't even consider, it is definitely the best science fiction book I have read in a long time. And I think if I had to rate it, I'd rate it a 4.8 out of 5. We have the next month of April coming on, and for this month, the book will be Sunrise on the Reaping. This is the next book in the Hunger Games series. It's a prequel to the first Hunger Game, and it's after Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It takes place during Haymitch's storyline. I heard it's a very dark and gruesome book, and I'm excited to read it. So if you're into dystopian type stories and you've never read Hunger Games, what are you doing? Do you live under a... If you have any suggestions on books that I should read for next month, please let me know. Any questions or comments, I'll be sure to answer them. Thanks for watching.